Hello and welcome. I know that some of you probably don't remember me or probably have haven't seen me or heard from me in a while. But if you all don't remember me or don't know who I am Tyler Anderson, also known as Isaac Driftwood. I am also a video production artist and a mental health advocate, which is gonna be today's subject. And before we bring it up, or before I talk about it, um, two things. I am thinking about starting a podcast and starting this whole podcast thing and see, because I've heard a lot of people do it and stuff, and I've thought about doing it, giving it a chance. And then also another thing too is, and this is what I'm gonna bring up with the with today's subject is the where I've been for the past few like almost a month. I've been kind of struggling with my mental health. I've been struggling with my depression and anxiety, and that's going to be kind of today's subject. Is because you know we all have depression and anxiety, and sometimes mental health it's nothing to kind of joke with. You know, in today's world, you know, mental health is not taken lightly, and sometimes it can be really a struggle, and sometimes a lot of people tend to not understand, how mental health is very important, and how sometimes when people have mental illness, to kind of be kind and nice to them. I mean, we should all be kind and nice to each other no matter what, but one of the things I'm going to bring up is that's a serious problem these days is cyberbullying, cyberbullying is, a big major thing because social media sometimes can be a very toxic place. Trust me, I know. Because, that's sometimes why I kind of take breaks a lot because sometimes, doing what I do is sometimes kind of stressful and kind of, it's kind of a lot on me. And I have dealt with a lot of criticism and a lot of people kind of pushing me and kind of, not always kind of being the kindest, and always kind of, saying, what they, I wouldn't say saying how they feel, but saying stuff without thinking, and that's kind of what, we kind of need to learn, and this world needs to learn is, we need to be careful what we say, and who we say it to, because we never know, what that person that we're saying it to is struggling with. They could have a bad day. They could be struggling with they could be struggling with their home life. They could be struggling with anything. And, and it could take one comment or one thing or one remark to drive that person over the edge. And the biggest thing that is happening to some of those people is they're kind of taking their own lives, and it's a sad fact. And that's because bullies, people, people don't really think. They get really, some people get really ignorant, and we say shit, and then we don't really think about it until years later or whatever it is. But I know we're all human, but the biggest thing is mental health is so important. I struggle with mental health. There's some days where I don't want to get up. There's some days where I don't want to do anything, and it's kind of a living hell. I, you know, I get so frustrated at myself because because I want to be more. I want to be, with my ideas and with the brand I run, with my Shock Art Underground, with Isaac Driftwood. I want to be more. I want to entertain an audience, and I want to be something more than that I could actually be, or more than I actually am. I want to be more. I want to help people. I want to entertain people. I want to I mean, because sometime down the road, when I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuttering here, but what I'm trying to say is sometime because I mean years when years go by and I'm like freaking 90, I want to look back at these moments, and I want people to look back at, like even if they're fans of me or not, or they discover me, they look at some of the, some of my stuff, and maybe it helps out somebody, maybe it helps out you, it could help out the world, just to take, I mean, I know some of the stuff is like horror content. I know people like to, kind of judge that. But the thing is, I have, mental health messages, and it's kind of hidden in my stuff, and it shows that, how much, the world kind of would mess up somebody, mentally. And, and that's the biggest thing is, we all, like, again, I'm going to keep, because I know I'm kind of going to say this over and over. We seriously need to be nice to each other. We seriously need kindness in this world. Mental health, like I said, it's a very, very, it's a hell. There's some days where I have like mental breakdowns and start crying, and get into like a pessimistic kind of thing because because I get, especially when I go through so much in my life and so much with, social media, I get, there's some times where I tend to shut out and, I tend to kind of shut down because I sometimes can't handle things anymore. And, and I can't handle too much. And there's some times where I have to step back. But then there's some times where I do come back, and I will always come back, because I love what I do. Sometimes even though what I do doesn't love me back. This world, sometimes, you love this world, but, sometimes this world doesn't love you back. But, the biggest message I'm going to say for anybody is if you are struggling, get help. Tell somebody. Don't keep yourself. Do not lock yourself. Do not lock yourself away. Do not put. Do not tell anybody. And try to kind of work it out on your own, because sometimes mental health can be really strong than you think. I've been struggling with it since I was 19, and I've been through a lot of shit. I don't want to get too personal in this, because I know this is going out, to a lot of people, and it's, and I try to kind of, and I don't want to, whatever it is, but I've been struggling with, mental health. I've been struggling with depression and anxiety for a lot of years. Sometimes when I'm on camera, I kind of, smile and, do, like, oh, this crazy redneck and this and that. And then, and people, they get, they kind of say, like, I need a therapist, I need this and that, which is one of the comments I think people really need to not do, because, you never, because somebody could actually, plant that in their heads, and they're completely kind of, and they start actually believing it, and, actually, kind of, especially with their mental state. But I think we again, we're gonna, we should be nice to each other. We should, whatever it is, and we should help out each other. You know, this world is so fucked up these days, and a lot of things are happening in this world, and us as humanity, us as humans, we should have respect for each other. We should help out each other. You know, you know, and whatever it is, and also at the same time too, if anything's struggling in anybody's lives, anything like family related or anything like that, you know, life is too short to hold grudges. Life is too short to be angry. Be angry all the time, be depressed all the time, you know. Sometimes, and if you are struggling, especially if you're having anxiety about something, like I always do sometimes, and you don't want to do it anymore, or push it, or or anything like that, or like, no matter if you're an artist or anything like that, and then one day it's like, like, okay, I don't want to do it anymore, and you start having these thoughts in your head, like, okay, if I do this, this might happen, or this and that, we never know, until we try it, and that's what I've been trying to do, kind of teach myself too, and easing myself back into stuff, is trying to kind of fix that part of my brain that's like telling me sometimes, if I do this with Isaac, or if I do this with this and that, that people are gonna like start to say shit about me, and start to kind of and it's gonna fuck up my and it's gonna fuck me up, and it's gonna fuck up my day, and it's gonna fuck up my night. But the thing is the only person that is in control is that could fix anything is yourself. And and the person that I know that that is responsible, that should matter, is me. And it's the same way with all of you. The only person that should matter is you. Trolls don't matter. In fact, like I always say, as Isaac, the sheep don't matter. We should all, like I said again, and this is the strong message, we should all be kind to each other. We should all, be nice to each other. We should all, respect each other, and we should all, be there for each other, no matter what, and that's all I'm going to say, and again, really, really important. If you are struggling, or if you have somebody in your life that is struggling, talk to them, or seek help for them, or tell them, like, okay, I know you're struggling, but it's gonna be okay, and give them, and like, give them hugs, hug them, whatever it is, no matter if it's especially if, like family or friends, hug them, tell them it's gonna be okay, and, be there for them. Okay. So that's it, and I'm gonna, and in the future, if this goes well, I'm going to do probably more podcasts about other subjects. Okay? Okay.